Welcome back. My name is Dr. Carl Baird, and today I'll be helping you learn how to perform the hip hinge movement by demonstrating 8 different progressions of the exercise. So we'll start with the beginner variation and just work our way up from there. So before we get started, it's important to understand that the hip hinge is the most important exercise to treat joint pain and arthritis, and it's one of those exercises I include in almost all my programs that I put together for people. It helps improve movement patterns, mobility, and strength to help limit impact on your joints, which is why it's really important that we learn, understand, and practice this movement in our strength training routine. So let's go ahead and get started. One of the best exercises to learn when we're learning how to hip hinge is called the hero squat. What this does is it takes our legs out of the movement so we can really focus on learning how to send our hips back, which is, if you're new to this movement, can sometimes be difficult to train your body to do. So to perform, we're just going to start on our knees in this kneeling upright position, and then I'm just going to reach my hips back to sit on my heels and come back up. And again, we want to keep a nice neutral spine, but again, what we're really focusing on is just learning how to unlock at the hips to send those hips back versus bending forward at the trunk, which as we get to later variations of the hip hinge can be a problem. The next progression of the hip hinge movement that we'll go over is called the butt tap. So this is another great way to practice sending the hips towards the wall behind us. This time we're just going to be in a standing position. So to perform, we're going to need a wall. I'll use the squat rack. We're just going to take just about a foot off, and then all we're going to do is that same thing we did with the hero squat, where we're going to unlock at the hips to tap the wall behind us. My spine is nice and straight, and come back to the starting position. Unlock my hips, send the hips back, tap the wall, and come back to the starting position. So there you have it. That is the butt tap. So now that we know how to initiate the hip hinge by sending our hips back, we can start focusing on maintaining a proper spinal alignment as we perform the movement. And so we do that with an exercise called the 3-point hip hinge, which we will use a PVC pipe to help perform. So what we want to do with this PVC is just put it right along our spine, and like the name suggests, we want it touching 3 points: the back of our head, our mid-back, and then our hip sacrum area. And from there, you can start with your feet about hip width apart, but you're going to, again, initiate the movement by sending the hips back. And as you descend, you want to focus on maintaining contact at those 3 points, stopping right when you feel tension in your hamstrings, and come back to the start. So again, what you really want to focus on is maintaining those 3 points of contact. So what can happen is, as I descend, and let's just say I go too far, my lower back starts to round and I lose that contact here. And so that's what we really want to watch out for as we perform this movement. Stopping when you feel tension at the hamstrings. I've got 3 points of contact, and coming back up. So now that we know how to initiate the movement by sending the hips back, maintaining a nice neutral spine throughout that movement, we can start adding resistance to really help ingrain this movement pattern. One of my favorite exercises is called the banded hip hinge. And to perform, we're going to use this red rubber band. We're going to place it on the mat, try to stand right in the middle, and again, start in that standing position and perform the hip hinge. So again, what I'm doing is I'm reaching my hips towards the back wall, maintaining that neutral spine, stopping when I feel tension at the hamstrings, and coming back up. Reaching the hips back, maintaining a neutral spine, stop when I feel tension, and back up. There you have it. That's the banded hip hinge. Another great hip hinge progression is called the weighted hip hinge, and it's just the same movement, but this time we're holding a weight to increase resistance. And that resistance is going to help build strength and just further ingrain that movement pattern. So to perform, I'll be using a kettlebell. I'm going to hold it right in front of me, and we're going to focus on all the same things. I'm going to reach my hips back, keep my nice neutral spine, stopping when I feel tension in the hamstrings, and come back up. So the main thing you want to pay attention with this movement is that as I'm descending, the weight is pulling me straight down. So the kettlebell or dumbbell should be moving in a straight line and shouldn't be coming forward. So that is the weighted hip hinge. The next hip hinge progression is called the elevated kettlebell lift. So it's going to be very similar to the weighted hip hinge, only this time the weight is going to be starting from a step. So I've got it stacked on 3 yoga blocks here. I'm going to start by putting my feet on the outside of the yoga blocks, and then I'm going to perform that hip hinge, again, hips back, neutral spine, just until I can reach the weight, and then from there, stand back up. And so to lower back down, I'm reaching the hips back, keeping that neutral spine, setting the weight down, and again. So there you have it. That is the weighted hip hinge. So once you have the weighted variations of the hip hinge down, you can start learning how to use this movement to generate power from your hips to perform more dynamic and explosive movements. So to help learn that progression, we're going to use an exercise called the banded pull through. So I'm going to use one of these red bands again. I'm going to hook it low on a pole behind me. I'm just going to step over the band, holding it in front of my body. And from here, I'm going to let the band pull me back into my hip hinge movement. But what I want to focus on now is shooting my hips forward to return to that standing position. So what it looks like is shooting my hips forward, letting the band pull me back. Shooting my hips forward, letting the band pull me back. The most advanced variation of the hip hinge exercise that we'll cover in today's video is the kettlebell swing. So this is one of those more dynamic and explosive variations of the movement. So I wouldn't recommend moving here until you feel very confident in your hip hinge. But once you do, the kettlebell swing is a great exercise to build strength and get a cardiovascular workout in your strength training routine. So to perform, you're going to start with the kettlebell on the ground. Start about a foot back from your kettlebell. And again, from there, I'm going to send my hips back in that same hip hinge while I'm reaching out for the kettlebell. I'm going to start by swinging the kettlebell back and then shooting my hips forward to get the weight up until my arms are parallel. And then you're going to sink back in, let the weight pull you into that hip hinge, and then shoot the hips forward to get the weight back up. So what it looks like is this. Shooting the hips up, letting the weight pull you back. So again, it's that shooting the hips forward that gets the weight up. And then as the weight falls back down, you're moving in to the hip hinge position. So there you have it. That is the kettlebell. So there you have it. That is 8 hip hinge progressions to help you learn, practice, and understand the hip hinge movement. As I mentioned in the start of this video, the hip hinge is one of the most important movements to improve movement patterns, improve mobility, and build strength to help limit impact on your joints. And it's something that I include in every program I use to solve joint pain and arthritis in adults. So take your time to learn this movement. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Hey guys, it's Dr. Carl Baird here, and I wanted to thank you for watching our previous video and supporting our channel. Now, if you're somebody who's looking to build strength to solve joint pain, keep active, and maintain your lifestyle as you get older, be sure to subscribe to our channel to watch all of our new videos. You won't find it anywhere else.